Vegas Hospitality Evolution, and we couldn't have a better guest that have contributed so much to the evolution of Vegas, continues to be the board, our chairman of board for our variety music here in Las Vegas. He brings together so many great entertainers. If you haven't seen his show, you better go see it. It's an experience. It's something that it just if you have expectations to be entertained, it's going to exceed your expectations. So please go see Mr. Dennis Bono's show. I want to just formally introduce our illustrious guest. Mr. Dennis Bono is well known as a consummate interpreter of the great American songbook. What Mr. Bono is really proud of are the 20 years of doing a weekly syndicated radio show, which is simulcast now with television as well.
Well, we're on 191 stations.
Yes.
On network, on radio, actually.
Beautiful.
Syndicated radio.
Syndicated radio.
Yep.
During those 20 years as the host of his own nationally syndicated musical variety TV show from Las Vegas, The Dennis Bono Show has been interviewed just about every major entertainer, has interviewed just about every major entertainer who stepped out on the Las Vegas stage. During the 20 years, Mr. Bono also introduced many lesser-known talent entertainers to a vast listening audience who have gone on to become well-known. So that's why we call him the chairman of variety entertainment here in Las Vegas. I want to start off by saying,
first of all, thank you. I mean, that's a heck of an introduction.
Well,
I feel like I'm Ralph Edwards, This Is Your Life, and my third grade teacher is going to come out.
Before it's over, you will think this is your life. I am so exuberant and ecstatic about having you here. I know that I'm in front of greatness. You are great. You're humble, but you're great. Your show is just, it reaches out and it surpasses race, age. I really believe, after doing my research on your show, I believe that you've had more sold out shows than any entertainer in Las Vegas history.
22 years, yeah.
In Las Vegas history. That includes Sinatra, none of them have had this many sold out shows over that long period of time.
Well, it just shows you that how old I am.
No, I'm talking about how people are entertained by you, how people come and see you. That's why I'm telling my audience, if you want great entertainment, variety entertainment, listen, when I went to see, the last show that I went to see that Mr. Bono put on.
Please call me Dennis.
Dennis Bono it's hard to call you Dennis, but I will call you Dennis. That Dennis put on, he had a comedian that was hysterical. He had an opera singer that blew us away. I mean, it was just...
It sort of runs the gamut.
It runs the gamut. It was just... That's why I say you are the chairman of the board for variety music here in Las Vegas.
Well, thank you.
Now, I mentioned that to you before we went on air, and you said, well, I'm a part of a board. Can you explain to our audience?
Well, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but during the pandemic, I've got, over the years, I've developed so many friendships in the entertainment industry. So from the time, when I started, I got thrown out of kindergarten at 5 years old for doing an impression of Johnny Ray, who was a very popular singer in 1952. And he had a song called Cry, where he got on his hands and knees and he opened his shirt, and it was on television. It was like this really huge experience for people who were watching on TV. Well, I imitated him in show and tell, and they sent me home saying, there's something wrong with your child. So that was my first foray, I should say, into the entertainment industry. But I guess at my subconscious, I always wanted to be a performer. And when I look back at it, I've had the opportunity to uh, become friends with so many wonderfully talented
The list
artists.
goes on
It
and
does.
on.
When somebody said how many, I have no clue, but the fact that you become friends with them is even more meaningful. As when I was a kid, I used to picture myself sitting and having dinner with Frank Sinatra. I must have been about 12. And then the first night, of course, many years later, I'm sitting there and I'm having dinner with Frank Sinatra. And I
Wow.
said, oh my God, I used to dream about this as a kid. So the thrill, this has been a joyous journey for me.
I want to ask you, since we're talking about Mr. Sinatra, I want to ask you that relationship, and I was told that you were going to be the heir apparent to Frank Sinatra because of your singing, your style.
That's really that's a heck of a torch to have to carry across to bear, I should say. But the truth of the matter is, he had a great influence on my life as a singer, and learning how to interpret and learning about choice of material, and he had a great influence on my performance side, and he had a great influence on my personal side because I watched and got to know him just enough to learn. My father used to say, remember, you have two ears and one mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk.
Your father
And
was
so,
wise.
and I know, so being around some of these guys over the years, I learned an awful lot.
When we talk about the Great American Songbook, can you tell our audience what does that mean? The Great
Well,
American Songbook.
it's changing now because, uh, I grew up. I was sort of a closet. I call it myself as a kid a closet Sinatra guy. When all my friends were listening to the Beach Boys and the Four Seasons, which I loved. I loved that music, but they weren't tuning in Sinatra on the radio. But when I was by myself, I was tuning Sinatra in on the radio, and that's where my great influence, obviously came from. But the Great American Songbook is some of the. I always try to explain it this way. Long after, people are still doing Hamlet. Actors are still doing Hamlet so many years after Shakespeare is gone because it stands the test of time.
Yes.
That's why they call them standards. So every actor who does Hamlet, as an example, can bring a new interpretation to the work itself. And that's what, to me, the Great American Songbook allows. It allows young singers and every singer an avenue to interpret that piece of music because it's so well written. It allows them to do that. To me, those songs that allow that are actually the Great American Songbook. And many times now, the Great American Songbook continues to grow because there's some wonderful, the Billy Joel stuff and the Manilow, all that stuff has become, part of our culture, part of our great
Part of
American.
our
So the
standards.
Motown,
Yes.
Motown. There's so many great Motown songs that had such an influence on our culture and on our musical taste. That's what becomes the Great American Songbook, in my humble opinion.
Your first job or gig in Las Vegas was where?
Well, my first job in Las Vegas, if you really want to hear a journey, you talk about when I first decided, after I got out of the service, I sang on weekends as a kid, all right, and just tried to learn and develop my craft. While other kids were working in a gas station on a weekend, I was singing at a country club, which was it was a lot nicer, and it wasn't about the money; it was about learning and experiencing something that I was attracted to. And it was a long, long journey before I arrived in Las Vegas. I did Playboy clubs. I worked every joint in every town. And in those days, there were nightclubs in every town in the 70s. After I got out of the Army in 1970. And, I wanted to pursue a musical career. I was going to be a teacher because that's what, it seemed the logical thing to do. But in my heart was, no, come on, take a shot.
I did a little research, not to cut you off. I did a little research. You would have been an English teacher.
Yes.
You would have been an English teacher.
I'm not sure I would have survived it. It's the, times have changed.
So proceed. You were.
So I
You
was,
didn't?
yeah, I got out of the service and I went back to college for a while. And I said, no, this is not my cup of tea. I'm going to, if I stay in college any longer, I'm going to have tenure, you know. So I said, I want to pursue the musical career. And I went on the road and I worked I remember speaking with Mr. Sinatra and so many other artists talking about the clubs that they worked. And that's really where they learned their craft. Okay. And that's what I did. I went out and in those days, there were clubs in every city, everything from Cleveland to Schenectady to Toledo to Albany, any club that allowed, that had performers coming. I had an agent that was booking me, and some of those clubs were tough, They were owned by some, it was a different era. I used to say, I remember telling Oscar Goodman one time, I said, geez, every club that I worked in those old days, everybody, the owner, their middle name was The. And he laughed and he said, every client I had was called Alleged.
Well, I tell you, but Vintage Vegas,
Yeah.
which I've heard you say on stage, Vintage Vegas is what propelled this phenomenal city into the spotlight, not domestically, but internationally.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, my first trip, ultimately what happened, and I think it's important for me to tell this story because if we're leading into where Vegas is, where it's going, I sort of have to lay the groundwork from my perspective. I had, like I said, been on the road, learning my craft and sort of what we refer to as paying your dues. It would be like if you're in baseball, you start at D, the D League,
Yes,
and then you work your way up. So that's sort of what I did, and I came off the road because I was from Hartford, Connecticut, and I had family, I had a baby, and I said, well, I guess I'll take a shot and become an entertainment director for a hotel offered me a job and would still allow me to perform, and I'll be home because this being on the road is becoming more difficult, and I'm not achieving my goals. So I recorded an album that was getting airplay in Los Angeles. I was this entertainment director, and I was still performing in Hartford. And I get this call from I remember the secretary said, Dennis, there's a Mr. Rizzo on the phone. And I go, oh, God, what am I in trouble with the unions? That's the only thing I could think of, because there are a lot of colorful characters. So,
Right.
And he said, no, it's a Mr. Jilly Rizzo. And I'm going, now, wait a minute, Jilly Rizzo? Because being a fan and knowing so much about Sinatra, I knew who Jilly was. Jilly was Frank's right-hand man. He was the brother that Frank never had. And so I answered the phone and he said, Frank and I heard your album in LA. I'm coming to New York. Will you come and meet me? And I'm going, you're kidding, right? So I go into New York and I meet Jilly. Make a long story short, we sat there for 2 hours and he said, do you have a brother? And I went, no, because he was asking about my background and my family, trying to probably understand if I was, a screw up.
Yes.
And I wasn't. And he said, do you have a brother? After a couple hours. And I said, no. He says, well, you've got one now.
Wow.
Well, and I have to tell you, my life changed from that moment on. Within 2 hours, I was at Warner Brothers. They were introducing me to people. Within a month, I was in Los Angeles, and they put me to work with Rickles. And inevitably, make a long story short, that's how I ended up in Las Vegas. My dream came true from an avenue that I never expected to take.
The universe spoke, man.
Yeah, I guess. You
have
have
to.
to.
You dreamed about this. And it became,
My father used to say, "You become what you dream about all the time."
and that's why you don't stop kids from dreaming.
No, never,
You don't stop
never,
kids
never,
from
never,
dreaming.
never. No.
I wanted to ask you 12 years at the South Point, and again, I don't think, and I've been here since 1952. I was a baby, but I've gone to every show you can think of. The one name shows, Diana, Sammy.
Yeah.
I've
Cher.
gone to
Yeah, of
Cher.
course,
I've
yeah.
gone to all of those shows, and I tell you, I don't think that there's one entertainer out of all of those great names that have had more sold out shows than you.
Well, I don't know that
over
that's
the
a
years.
fact, but
I'm
certainly
gonna
I'm flattered that you say that.
I'm gonna look into
I don't
it.
want anybody to research me just in case you're wrong.
All of the shows that we do is from an academic point of view.
Right.
I'm a tenured professor in the university college system. For 30 years, I teach hospitality management. This show is all about celebrating Las Vegas hospitality evolution.
Well, and you know what? You're right, and because hospitality, and it's part of our culture here in Las Vegas. Entertainment is an important part of our culture. It's not just gaming. It's not just food. It's entertainment. Now it's becoming sports. I mean, the potential of this community is, I mean, there's no limits,
Boundaries,
no
no
limits.
limits.
Yeah,
We,
but getting back to what I was saying is when you asked me when I came out in my first gig. I'm trying to go back to
yes,
your original
yes,
question.
yes.
I hope I didn't take
No,
people
no, no,
down
no,
a
no, no.
down a road they didn't want to go to. But my first gig was, I had been working really hard to get here, and I had no success. Not because I at that I'm a singer. That's my background, and I was singing 2 shows a night, 6 nights a week, 3 shows a night, all the time. But I did the Playboy clubs. I just couldn't get to that last step until Jilly heard me on an album and then brought me out here and Mr. Sinatra. They put me together with Don Rickles. That was my first job in Las Vegas, opening for Don Rickles. That's a heck of a
Wow,
way.
that's
A heck of a way to get
move.
thrown into the mix.
Yeah, you're at the top of the really of entertainment.
It was a remarkable experience, and I was mesmerized by his talent and his ability and his quickness. And today he probably wouldn't be able to work today because everything
Yeah,
being
everybody's
so
touchy.
politically
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
He made fun of everybody.
I've gone to his show. It
Yeah.
was funny, but I made sure I didn't sit at the front.
No, he would go get you. at the
No,
front.
he'll get you
but
at the
but
front.
the truth of the matter is, he scorch everybody in an
Yes.
audience, and then in the end, he would bring them all together.
together.
And I'd say, man, what a gift!
Yes,
What a gift!
yes.
And I learned a lot from him, and he
He was an equal opportunity scorcher, man.
Yeah,
he
there was
didn't
no-
care.
he
He didn't
did-
care who you were.
I'm telling you, I had more fun when I was working with Don Rickles to go into his dressing room. So a lot of artists don't want to be bothered, before they go on. They try to get into, like an athlete, you try to get into
Yes.
the right frame of mind for performance. But Don was just the opposite. He wanted people to come back in because it was like he'd start picking on them. And that by the time the show started, he was on fire. I'd walk in and he'd start on me. He'd start scorching me. So by the time he walked out on stage, he was electric already.
Oh, wow.
So everybody's formula is different. But that was my first foray into the shows in Vegas.
How about the great Jerry Lewis?
I
What was
had-
your interfacing with
I
him?
had Jerry on the variety show.
Okay.
I think two times, and it was later in his career.
Yes.
And I mean he did it. The experience that he gave the listening and viewing public by bringing so many artists on during, of course, during the telethon, people would be exposed to a lot of
Yeah.
people they had never seen or
Yes.
heard before. Besides all of the incredible philanthropic work that he
Yes.
did. So he was quite a remarkable, iconic figure.
I wanted to ask you about. I want to get more into the person that really influenced you the most. Obviously, it's apparent that it was Frank Sinatra.
Well,
He's the one that.
I've learned a lot from, I tell, they referred to me as the kid
Yes.
in those days. Call the kid. Frank or Julie would say, you want to call the kid, have him come over after the show, have dinner. And of course, I was sitting there like, trying to act like I belonged. But they called me the kid, and now I'm going to be 75 years old, and I call everybody
You look
else.
great.
Everybody else is the kid to me.
Yes.
But I learned so much from so many different performers, and somebody will ask me, well, how do you get to it? I said, there's no formula. There's no, if I knew what the formula is, I'd be selling the formula to everybody that wants to pursue entertainment. But I can tell you what things not to do. And sometimes that's just as important as telling people what they should be doing. You know what to try to avoid certain mistakes,
Let's go back to
certain pitfalls.
your father's wisdom.
Yeah,
2 ears in one mouth.
yeah,
You gotta listen.
I
You
did.
gotta listen. I wanted to ask
But
you.
he had the most influence on me. But I learned from
Yeah.
so many others, so many other singers. I learned, you know, like I said, by listening. So
Your comedy. When I went to your show, your comedy was so fun, and you would sometimes be the straight man, and sometimes you would come with a
oh,
singer.
I love to play off of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
do.
So
That I learned from. To be honest with you, I learned from Johnny Carson. I used to watch Johnny Carson, and he didn't sing, but I watched the way he would interact with, and his expressions, and I knew that he had been influenced by people like Jack Benny and so many that had gone before him.
Jack Parr.
So, yeah, and everybody learns from somebody. If you don't learn from those who came before you, you're making a big mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I learned a lot of that, you know, from him. But I like comedy. I used to get thrown out. I'm a singer, and I got thrown out of choir in high school constantly because I used it as a platform to just have fun. And I would, the poor guys out there teaching it, and I'd be making jokes, and they go, "Get out!" You know. And then years later, they would call me back to the high school to speak to the choir, and they would say, "Well, talk about your start." And I go, "Are you kidding?" They used to throw me out here all the time.
You forgot about that part. Well, I tell you, you know, how did you and your beautiful wife meet? And I'm gonna just say this. Did music have anything to do with it? Because she's a virtuoso, and so are you. And how did you meet?
Well, it's interesting. I certainly knew who she was. You know, she was lieutenant governor, and but I just knew of her, and I knew about the restaurant and her husband, you know, who I became friends with earlier, and she had a great musical background. Well, I was doing a show, and I forgot what the event was. It was a private show, and it was there was a title for it. I think it was called The Old Timers, and it was a private show at the old Stardust Hotel. And they asked me to perform and host it and bring other performers on. So I got up and I sang, and she came in from Carson City as lieutenant governor and sat in front of me, and you know, she was a great fan of my singing. And it wasn't until much later on.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. It wasn't until much later on.
I'm queuing up one of your songs.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Okay.
But we became friends, and she would fly down from Carson City, and I would stop into the restaurant, the Bootlegger, and we'd sit and visit, and we just kept doing it. And then next thing you know, the columnist said, "Ardennis," because her husband they were divorced, and he wasn't around anymore. And she said, they said, "Are Dennis and Lorraine dating?" And so I looked at her and I said, "Are we dating?" And she goes, I don't know. I mean, we just enjoyed each other's company. So I took her to the movies. That was our first official date. And from that moment on, the two families just blended.
Have you ever sung a duet with your wife?
Yeah, sure. I've done it at the restaurant quite a few times. And sometimes we'll get up, people will say, "Dennis, you know, Lorraine," because she still sings great. And so we'll get up and we'll do a duet. We have some fun. We're not Steve and Edie, and they were our dearest friends. But the chemistry, we have a lot of fun with it.
That's the only thing that I didn't hear at your variety show, were you and your wife singing a duet, and I look forward to doing that.
Well, she does a parody sometimes. She'll come on and do something comical, like on our anniversary show, and has some fun with me musically. But we still occasionally like to get up and do a duet.
I want to ask you this question about this song. This song is
It's a special song.
Man, I want the audience to hear some more bars of this song.
Okay.
I tell you, I love this song.
Well, it's got a special spot in my heart, I can tell you that.
Well, it's got a special spot in my heart too, as well. The lyrics.
No complaints and placing bets. But I have learned that all you give is all you get. So give it all you've got. I've had my share, I drink my fill. And even though I'm satisfied, I'm hungry still.
Wow.
To see what's down another road beyond the hill and do it all again. Yeah, thank you.
That embodies you, and it also embodies this city.
Mm-hmm.
It also embodies this city. If you
really pay attention to the lyrics, we were talking earlier about what makes a song part of the Great American Songbook. I happen to be friends with Artie Butler, who wrote that song. And I had him on my other show, Breaking Bread with Bono, which is a one-on-one thing that we do. But I've had him on my show, and he's written songs from Manilow and some, the list of hits that but that one is the one that's always been most special to me because it says so much about, I don't think you can sing it when you're 25. You have to sing it after you've lived some of these lines.
Ups and downs.
Yeah.
And even though you've had your fill, you're still hungry.
I'm hungry still.
You're still hungry. That's a beautiful thing, and that's what we should be.
Yeah.
Until some people say in sports, until a fat lady sings. But you're living life and you're learning and you're yearning.
Yeah.
All the way until you don't open your eyes anymore.
That's right.
That's a beautiful life, man.
Well, Artie wrote that song, and it's the lyric was the first time I heard Shirley Horn sing it, and that's probably the most famous version, and just a great interpreter of song.
I heard her version when I was doing my research.
It's really everybody's attempt is to just give as much meaning to the song as she does. And if I did for somebody, that's fine.
I loved your version.
Thank you.
I love your version. Matter of fact, it's my favorite version of the song.
Well, very nice.
I heard her version, and I don't know if it's your Italian background. I don't know if you're a romantic background. I don't know what it is,
it's
but
probably
the
combination. Yeah,
the chemistry of how you presented that song is just.
Well, it's funny when it comes to songs. You have to have the palette, the arranger and the song itself. You have to have. We talked about Hamlet. It's a Shakespearean play, and Hamlet is this incredible character, and every actor will interpret it as they see fit. And some have become famous because of their interpretation of that role. And it's a common, your producer, your arranger, the studio, the comfort in the studio, Mr. Sinatra, and I used to say Mr. S, I never called him Frank. And he said...
That's why it's hard for me to call you Dennis.
Oh, please.
Because of the respect.
So when I stop and think about it, he said, don't ever sing anything you don't believe in. Now, he told me that later in his life. If you listen to a lot of early Sinatra, he was hungry. He was, whatever he could sing and would get some notoriety or recognition, he would. He did some songs that won't stand the test of time, okay? But he did, the majority, the older he got, his choice of material became impeccable. And I hope I've learned some of that from him, that when I make a decision about a song, that it's got to mean something to me. And it has to do, you said Italian, it has to do with being a romantic, and I am, and it has to do with what you've learned and what you've lived. So I think the combination.
When songs can reach your heart till you feel misty-eyed,
well,
that is a heck of a song. And I'm going to tell you, the show that I went to, you sung some songs, and I mentioned to you this before we went on the air. My wife and I started holding hands and snuggling up, and I'm saying, man,
that's why we do it. That's why we do the show in a hotel. There's rooms available.
Well, all I can do is make a memory, not a baby anymore. You know, I'm a grandfather 5 times.
I get
it. But I tell you, it was just, it's something to be said about emotions and entertainers that we're in this space right now with coronavirus. We had October 1. And how do you get us to forget about our problems?
Well, I think, it's not just me, but I can tell you that the audience, by the time we went back after this long layoff, like I said, we've been doing the show 22 years. We just celebrated the anniversary. But after that long layoff, I was a little bit concerned. But I knew that people were chomping at the bit. They were dying to get out and live their lives again. They were tired of being afraid, tired of walking on eggshells. And I was overwhelmed. That first show, I said, well, how many people are going to come? Oh, my God. It was like
Packed.
an incredible experience.
Yes.
And I wanted to embrace them, and they wanted to embrace me.
Did you kind of feel a responsibility to bring them out of?
Well, I don't.
Is it the word responsibility or?
I'm not sure I thought about it that way. As I reflect back upon it, I felt an obligation to try to make people forget.
You're the English teacher, remember?
Yeah, well,
okay.
An obligation to try to forget what we had all experienced. Not that, I said you learn from the past, but there's not a lot that we don't want to experience this and say, well, we've learned from this. We want to people are tired. They want to move forward with their lives, to see what's down the road again.
Yes.
Okay.
And entertainment is that.
It's the backbone of this community,
yes,
along with gaming, but people love to feel good, and you could say gaming makes you feel good if you win, but entertainment, you go to see somebody because it's going to make you feel good.
They don't call it winning; they call it gambling.
Gambling.
So that's
right.
a big thing.
People would say, "Well," I say, "You see these hotels? Those weren't built by the winners."
That's right.
But
but it's
that's
fun.
all part of our culture.
Yes, it's fun.
Just like food now. Food has become such an important part
Look at all the
of
chefs
this
that we have
community.
here.
Yeah, my mother-in-law in 1943, she was really the first chef, so to speak. She came out and they didn't even know what a pizza was in 1943. And she became legendary. But now look at it, celebrity chefs, and it's all the huge celebrities that come in and perform. But we talked about the Rat Pack and all the hotels and the headliners. You drive down the street, there were one headliner after another. Now they're in arenas and they're in stadiums and selling out, selling out to immensely
Large
huge
audience.
crowds.
Yeah.
And so it's.
But you miss, if you haven't tasted Vegas, that made Las Vegas great, and we call it vintage Vegas, but the headliners, they made you, it was an intimacy.
Well, there's more intimacy. I
think.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the
Well,
intimacy.
I'm old school, and that's where I
Yes.
come from. So
Yes.
I'm accused of being a little bit old-fashioned sometimes. When I first came to Vegas, I had already had a picture in my mind what Vegas was by what I had seen on television. And the first time I drove down the strip was all neon in those days. And every hotel was a headliner. And I'm going, oh my gosh, could I possibly end up being a part of this? It was beyond me. It was part of my dream. But at that time, it sometimes felt like it was going to be beyond me. But there was an elegance about Vegas. People would dress up at night.
Oh,
You see people
to the nines,
and
man.
the women would.
Beautiful.
It could be 105 degrees out, but if they had a mink, they were wearing it
Yes.
because they were going to see a show. Now everything has changed, not just in Vegas, throughout the culture. I'm still old-fashioned. I go out at night, I'm wearing at least the sports jacket, okay?
Yes.
And that's just where I come from. When I say come from, I don't mean like Connecticut. I mean it's just the way I was raised. So obviously times have changed,
Yes.
and I'm in the minority, and it's all about enjoyment. If people are going to be more casual and they're going to still have a great time, then that's what this city is about. That's why people come here.
I think that we kind of started off with the Great Generation from 1901 to 1927. The people that went through the Great Depression and fought in World War II. Las Vegas. Our gaming started in 1932. Let me look at my notes. Exactly. It was in May, and we became that. What really made Vegas happen were the baby boomers.
Yeah.
The baby boomers, 1946 to 1968. 1968 are the baby boomers.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that drove that. But I believe that the millennials and Generation X and Y, if they had a taste of the intimacy of a show, I think that they would love it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm surprised that occasionally I'll see younger people in our audience that gives them, and our show gives them a taste of. It's not just the music, because we have artists on our show that encompass so many different styles of music, everything from pop to rock to opera to, but I do see like some clubs opening up that are more elegant now, that are trying to make, is sort of setting a new standard.
Yes.
And I'm encouraged by that.
They may be going back to the standard.
Everything old. They say everything old is new again. I mean, it's different. It may not be everything old is new, but there's a lot of things that come back with a different approach, a different style.
And it could be the same game, but a different name.
Yeah.
So when something is great, it's bound to happen, or people want it to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas, our evolution we just continue to reinvent this town, don't we?
I think that's
for each generation.
We have great stamina, and we have great. We're very thick-skinned. Okay, I think that my father used to say, "Be tender-hearted but thick-skinned," and I think that this city, Las Vegas, has a lot of that. We do have a tender heart, and that sort of keeps us together. But we're thick-skinned. Things bounce off of us.
Yes.
We manage to come back, and we come back stronger. So I think that I'm looking at the growth of Vegas. I don't know where it's headed, but I can tell you it's still growing.
When you first got to Vegas, I bet you it was probably less than 200,000 people here.
Well, there was probably there was more than that.
No,
but when my mother-in-law got to Vegas, I think it was 8,000.
Yes.
In 1943.
Now we're approaching what, 3 million?
3 million, I think.
It's crazy.
But here's the thing: when I look at the potential of this community and people who have the experience in gaming and in business, and they obviously see the potential. Now look at we've gone entertainment, gaming, sports. Sports is becoming.
The convention.
We've got a football team. We've got a hockey team.
On.
How long before we have an
baseball
NBA
team.
and a baseball team? Inevitably, it will happen.
But does that surprise you about this magical city called Las Vegas?
It's faster than I thought it would be.
Yes.
But like I said, the resiliency of this community is what is most remarkable. Every time I think, my gosh, what's going to happen next? They just keep coming back.
And hotel suspended in midair, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I have no clue.
This town and the leaders, and when you speak of leaders, not only people like yourself, but our political leaders were in lockstep with our vision.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife.
Yeah.
I know that she, I had the honor of being a part of something dealing with China that happened at the college, and your wife was right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Our city has gone from the international capital for gambling, and then we turned the word into gaming because we started proliferating in other, especially the Bible Belt, and now entertainment, now sports and entertainment.
Yeah, it's really it's quite a remarkable. I when I came out here, I had no idea that my life would turn into where I am at this stage. First of all, I'm doing what I've dreamed of doing. Um, I married the most remarkable woman. I've learned so much from her and her family, and I've become part of the the bootlegger restaurant
Yes.
family as well. And I take great pride in that, and I do everything within my power to protect that image as well. But I just look back sometimes, and when you said, "Well, here's to life," I look back and
Oh,
I go, "Really?"
what a
I
song.
sometimes
Yes.
sit and go, "Did this really all happen to me?"
I believe that's why the way you sung this song
Hmm.
resonates to me.
Well, I'm certainly
It
pleased to hear
resonates
that.
not
Yeah.
only to me but to a lot of, and I'm not gonna say your music transcends gender, transcends ethnicity.
Mhm.
I just think that when I heard that song, it
Well, it's
just
amazing.
really,
I'm surprised that that's the song you chose
yes.
because I've had I have a
I've heard all your
yeah.
songs.
It's like I have 4 CD sets and
Yes,
I can't even some of
I've
the
done a
songs.
lot of research
Well, you have,
on you, and
yeah.
that song. When I
Well,
heard that song, I said, "Oh my God!" And I let my wife listen to it, and I said, "Wow, doesn't that really touch your heart, man?"
Well, we went back to interpretation. We were talking about songs, and not to get off the path about where we think the city is headed. But one of the other things that I learned by watching some of the great performers, um, as singers, for instance, everybody had certain strengths. Sammy Davis was the most. I never saw anybody that versatile in my entire life who could interpret a song, could everything
You
he
have to be
did was
born with that, don't you? Just like you had to be born with what you.
well. There's a lot to it, but when you think back about him growing up in the family he grew up with, he was influenced. He learned a lot,
Yes,
and I think
yes.
most of the really good singers, the ones that I admired, will be able to probably say there were people that influenced them, and they learned their craft by listening and watching. But I remember Mr. Sinatra saying, you know, and I watched him. I said he became the consummate actor later on in life. He would sing when he was younger. He was a big band singer, and it was about, like most singers when we're young, it's about the sound. How do we sound? Do we sound good? Do I have enough resonance in my voice? Then, as you get older, you start paying attention. Not that you don't pay attention to the melody, but now you start looking at the lyric, and you say, How do I identify with that lyric? Or how does that lyric identify with me? And how do you incorporate it? And you become the actor, which is why I think Frank Sinatra's career was it's once in a lifetime because he understood that. And the
I want
older
to.
he got, the better he got at being the actor.
I want to take a little time out, about 2 minutes,
Okay.
time out, and then I want to come back and I want to talk to you about the evolution and get more specific about what you have experienced from your point of view, from your lens. Share with our audience a little more about the Rat Pack and how we have developed a new Rat Pack. But the Rat Pack started when? And
Oh, I guess it was in the late 50s, early 60s, probably. I mean, all the performers, they all knew each other. Dean and Frank were, they became friends and they all had great admiration for Sammy's versatility. And then, of course, the political side came in with Peter Lawford and
Yes.
because of the Kennedys and then Joey Bishop. But what it was basically was a camaraderie amongst performers and a respect. And these guys just had fun together.
Yes.
And that's what made the Rat Pack was actually the Rat Pack started with Humphrey Bogart. It started back when they bucked the studios and he had a bunch of actors that fought against the studios and they called him a rat. They call it the Rat Pack. But then later on it became something different with Frank Sinatra. I never saw the Rat Pack together, but I did get a chance to to meet and know everybody individually.
And because you're the chairman of
The
of
board. When you say board,
board.
remember, please let the audience know it's board. B O
Oh,
R E
okay.
D. It came about during the pandemic. We
Yes.
were bored,
Right.
so
Right.
that's why we called it the board. Okay, don't make it sound like you
Okay.
because you can't replicate or
No.
duplicate
No.
the original Rat Pack. So
Michael Gahn
yeah,
is the Gahn family is a family that was a part of this evolution,
absolutely.
and what they have done with the showroom that you perform in, and all the people that you bring into that showroom, is going back to that word again, vintage
It
Vegas.
is, I don't like to use the word old school,
No,
but
no,
vintage to me means something a little bit different.
yes,
It doesn't. It's just it's a style,
yes,
okay. And Michael Gaughan has his own style. He doesn't answer to anybody but
no,
himself. And I mean, he's got an intimate group, but he makes the final decision. And he embraced me and made me. They came to see me. Gosh, that's 12 years ago. I was at another property. I had been in one property for 5 years, another property for another 5 years, and then Michael Gaughan, had his entertainment guy come in, and next thing I know, I've been there 12 years, and they've treated me.
almost like the story with Sinatra.
Yeah, they've treated me like
Yeah,
family. They really
yes.
have, and it's a wonderful place to. I don't know how long this career of mine will last, but I'll tell you, it'll. I don't want to go anywhere else besides where I am. And I always, when you stop and think about it, it's been quite a remarkable journey. I just said to the audience the other day, I just want you to know I signed a very lucrative contract, a new contract with the South Point. Everybody started to cheer. And I said, now, if I can only get Michael Gaunt to sign it, I'll be okay.
That's great. Listen, the Gahn family have always been a leader. You name the families. We
Got
can
great
name the
history.
families.
Great
Yeah,
history.
great history.
Yep.
Jackie Gahn, his
Yep.
dad,
One of the pioneers.
one of the pioneers.
Yep.
He was the hotel downtown. Now it slips my mind. That's a shame.
No,
Um,
isn't that funny?
Yes,
I
it
know.
slips, but we can edit that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I wanted to ask you this. You have given a platform to every entertainer here, some that are very well known, some that, like the young people that
That
you
are up and
help
coming. Yeah.
their
If there's
careers.
anything that I'm really proud of about this show, is that it has allowed um, the celebrities to come on, and I've been thrilled to become friends with so many of them. But they come on and promote their shows because we're on 191 stations, two stations here in Las Vegas, but we're on 191 with the network and stuff. But the key, and it's important to them, every artist, to come on and plug their gig for the weekend, however long they're in town, or a book, or a movie, or whatever it is they're doing. But the thrill for me is to bring young people on that have really not, I mean, they're talented, but not had the opportunity to establish themselves. And I think about how it happened for me. It's never going to happen the same way for everybody. But when you give somebody an opportunity, and so many of my audience have embraced certain performers, and they wherever, and these artists are working now, and they go to see them everywhere, and that really makes me.
Yeah, yeah,
I take a
yeah.
lot of pride. It makes me feel good.
Well,
It's very selfish. I actually feel so good about it.
you're enriching people lives
Mhm.
that they can take that enrichment and turn it into riches.
Well, and the other thing is when and I'm not even going to mention the particular performer, but I remember when she first came on the air, and she was scared, she was shaking like a little bird, and then she came on, and I sensed that she had a lot of potential, and so I brought her on, and she's gone from like a bird to like a swan. Now she walks on the stage with this air of elegance and beauty and self-confidence. And to watch that, when you see that happen for performers, I get great satisfaction out of it. It's almost too selfish.
But you gave her the chance to learn like you learned.
Well,
From,
a platform is important.
Yes.
The clubs that I grew up in those tough clubs where the hat check girl's name was Dominic. And I used the old line. I said, "With the special on the menu was broken leg of lamb."
Right, broken leg.
But the truth of the matter is that that's where I learned my craft, and those opportunities are not there for performers like they were for me. So if I have an opportunity to share somebody, have them share their talent, and have an audience discover them, and then the audience embraces them, it really, I'm glad, I'm happy for them, but I take a great amount of satisfaction to the point where it's kind of selfish. I almost enjoy it more than the artist does.
Almost sounds like a Godfather.
Well,
Right. Listen, the name of our show, and I keep repeating it to our audience, is Las Vegas Hospitality Evolution.
yeah.
Impromptu, when you hear that, how does that resonate with you? What do you think about when you think about this evolution of this phenomenal city?
When I think of how it evolved to where it is now, all I can say is, oh my gosh, where is this going to evolve? Where's it going next? I am fascinated by it. I know that I won't be living in that fast lane with everybody at this stage of my life, but I will be watching it, and I know that it is going to continue to blossom and grow, and we'll find different angles. We talked about it was initially was gaming. Then it was entertainment and gaming, and then it became food and entertainment and gaming, and now it's sports and food and entertainment and gaming. And with major league teams coming in, I don't think that there's no limit to where this city, and it can keep growing. We have we have the property to keep growing. It just gets larger and larger, and it's still people. It's a destination that everybody wants to experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think if you want to use this analogy, that every Catholic would like to go to Vatican one day, every Muslim would like to go to Mecca, every gambler want to come here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a destination. And speaking of destination, how can you compare Las Vegas to Reno? Is there any comparison there?
I've never had the as much experience in Reno, except for when my wife was lieutenant governor, and I would go up to Carson City, and then of course I'd go. I performed in Reno a couple of times. It's a totally different. It's a small, large town. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
It's much more intimate, and I think the culture's a little bit different. It's not as diverse as it is here. As far as we have gaming, restaurants, entertainment, and sports. Reno has got the college. It's got beautiful area. That area of Nevada is magnificent.
It is beautiful.
And the gaming it's much more intimate city. What do they call it? The biggest.
The biggest, largest city or something like that.
Yeah, the biggest small city.
Yes.
But so there's a lot of truth to that. It does have its own image.
Yes.
It does. And Nevada has its own image. Nevada is remarkable.
Do you think you'll ever have any sports celebrities on your variety show?
I've had a couple of NASCAR drivers over the years. I suspect the one-on-one show, my other show, the Breaking Bread with Bono, I probably will have some sports celebrities during the off season. I get hockey players or football players, and it'll be a different. Like I said, that particular show is so different because it allows people to share. Not everybody sees the success in performance and they see the results, but they don't understand that the real success is determined by the journey. And when you do the one-on-one show, the Breaking Bread show, they get a chance to share their journey. On the variety show, you get up and you perform, and then you sit for 5 or 10 minutes and you talk about your next engagement or where you came from or where you're going. And so that's a little bit different. But I love having people on. I love people. I enjoy having people on the show.
Well, it's obvious, when we were graced to be a part, to come to your show, my mother-in-law and my wife and our expectations that we knew the show was going to be good, but you exceeded our expectations.
Well, it's
so much variety. I couldn't believe it.
Well, it's a variety show.
Yes,
so, somebody said, well, you got, I've actually had, when I think about it, because we were on TV for a couple of years, but even when now we're just radio, but on a lot of different stations. The only one I haven't had is a ventriloquist. I've actually had magicians, and I say to myself, did I actually just have a magician on the show on radio? It's might as well get a ventriloquist and say, hey, his lips weren't moving, trust me. That's about the only person that I haven't had on the show. But and you know what, my audience, whether it translates well to radio because the listening audience hears the enjoyment of the live audience. And that's somehow, when you hear people laugh on a live album and you go, well, what happened? But you still feel like you might have been there. So
what do you think about this word? What comes to your mind when I say retirement?
Tombstone.
Tombstone.
And I don't mean the series. Yeah. I'm just thinking, here lies, no, entertainers, we just we just do this until we can't.
Yeah, you don't retire.
No.
Look at George Burns.
Yeah.
I mean,
that kept him going those extra years.
Don Rickles.
Sure.
Don Rickles, he was 90,
yeah,
90.
Everybody worked.
Jerry Lewis was 90.
Absolutely, they kept working until they couldn't. Well, man, nothing makes me happy. You want to pick up wherever you want to pick up because I could talk about this guy all day.
I want you to. Yeah. I want our audience to know that Sonny Charles was the lead singer for the Checkmates.
Checkmates, yeah.
And one of the first interracial bands in Vegas.
Really? Yeah.
I know the whole story. He's done my show. And
Well, take over.
No, but my point is the audience should know. It's a marvelous story. I had him on Breaking Bread where he really shared the story from when you guys were young kids.
Sure.
But he's gone through some difficult times health-wise, but now you look fabulous. And I kept saying, "Are you ready? Are you ready?"
We used to play golf. Matter of fact, the first time I really played golf was with this gentleman right here, who's our executive producer, Harold Lewis. And I'm telling you, we golfed with a gentleman that was 90-something years old.
Don Hill.
Did you know Don?
Trenier, sure.
You guys all know each other.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So Don Hill, he would beat me every time. I mean, I hit the ball, but you know what he'd tell me? You gotta hit it straight.
Right.
You gotta hit it straight.
Oh, don't mean anything.
Right. I hit the long ball and I said, oh man.
And this guy's a great golfer.
I know he is.
And it's funny because I have said this, and my wife he knows this because I've said it in front of him. I think he's the best singer in our business in Las Vegas. There's nobody better. This guy can do a pop tune, a Motown song, talk about interpreting remember we talked about becoming the consummate actor and singing a wonderful lyric. He will sing "A House Is Not a Home" and bring my wife into tears. This guy is the best
almost
singer
the same as what you do with Here's to Life.
Well, thank you.
You know that song "Here's to Life." The way he sings it, he'll bring you to tears.
Yeah.
So
you look good, man. I am so happy to see you.
When I mentioned, I happen to we're good friends too, and I mentioned to Sonny, I say, man, I have someone that you may know that's going to be on a man. When I told him your name, he said, man, I said, man, let's surprise him tomorrow.
Oh my
let's
God.
bring him on and surprise him.
He said somebody's coming on to surprise you, and I'm going, hey, everybody I know from back east, they're all dead, or they're still in college, or they're still in college. He used to call it college.
He also said to me, I hope I don't owe him anybody. I said, no, you don't.
No, but I seriously, and I called him about a month ago. I said, you tell me when you're ready. I want him to come back on the stage because when he comes out on the stage, the place is mesmerized by his talent. And
did you
never change?
It's
the truth.
Did you also know Sweet Louie?
Yeah, of course.
Everybody knew Sweet Louie.
Well, I'm just asking because you never know. But Sweet Louie, these two were like I would say the difference between Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin.
Well,
is that a good analogy?
They used to both come on the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Louis, he'd shake my hand, and I would bleed because he had so many
Rings on his finger.
And
I've been there.
I'm wounded, for God's sake.
I've been there.
So what'd you do? Collect all of Sammy's rings?
And you would smell that cologne.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God. But that was
what a
it. That
character.
was him. He was a great guy.
You know, we talked about the evolution.
Yes.
And Sonny, but jump in with this because he knows more stories. He'd been in this town much longer than I had ever been. But the evolution of the talents that have withstood the test of time.
Yes.
And it's amazing when I look at Sonny and I think about the privilege that I've had to know so many performers that I watched when I saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah.
Yes.
My mother would make me go to bed when the show was over. That's how young I was. I hate to bring that up in front of you.
That's okay.
Yeah, but can I stay up for Ed Sullivan and maybe Bonanza? Oh, if you're good, But I remember seeing these guys, and they were electric. And this guy has maintained that same.
In spite of myself, I managed to keep my voice. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But
I want to ask you both. Did you ever frequent the Moulin Rouge?
no.
Did you
No,
ever?
it was
You never did.
It was gone when I got
before
here.
my time.
Yeah.
It was yeah.
What did you hear about it? And that was really a big part of our
Well, sure.
evolution, wasn't it?
Sure.
I heard the thing I heard was the competition after midnight. All the stars
Would go
there.
Yeah.
So they were taking all of their people with them, and the place would be jumping from 1 o'clock until 7 or 8 in the morning, I guess. And it was draining up the hotels on the strip.
Yeah, it didn't make the hotels happy.
No.
Yeah.
So back in those days, they played hardball.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to point the finger. I don't know. I wasn't even here.
Yes.
But all I know is the place burned down. So
From our research, they stopped receiving food and drink, and that was the.
That is beyond me.
Yeah.
All I know is that there were 3 guys across the street, and they said, "Is there the hotel?" No, that's Wednesday. It starts. Friday is the fire.
Right. Well, I am so happy that I could bring you two together.
Me too, man.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah,
I
I said it would be a surprise. It wasn't going to be a lady.
No.
It wasn't going to be somebody looking for you.
Yeah.
But I thought you would be happy,
Well,
especially
I
the
couldn't be
way
more pleased.
When he told me yesterday, "Won't you come there? Dennis Bono's going to be there. Do you know Dennis? Do I know Dennis?"
Dennis, he
I
just
can't
went
tell how
on
many
and on.
times he's been on the show over the years.
Yeah.
At every venue, from the first venue to the second.
I don't want to age you, but it's been probably 20 years.
22
That show.
years. We just celebrated last
Yeah.
week our 22nd anniversary.
Yeah.
And he's been on from the beginning.
And you know what?
Wow.
He's maintained the consistency. He's maintained the class and dignity of that show. And, hey.
You sure this is your life and you're not going to bring
I
up
did not
my
tell you-
third
No,
grade
no,
teacher?
just-
Here's somebody from your past, Dennis.
Yeah.
You went to Catholic school, didn't you?
No, I drove by the Catholic school
Okay.
because I knew a couple of girls there.
Right. All girls.
No, I didn't
school.
go to Catholic
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
I went to
okay.
public school.
Yes.
And it was I grew up in the city, Hartford, Connecticut, for the first 8 years, and then moved to the suburbs, and it was a life-changing experience. All of a sudden, have a yard. And,
Yeah.
It was a major.
What's the most amazing thing that you can say about this man's talent?
Wait a minute, I wrote it down here. Remember?
I left my glasses. No, but you know what? Seeing Dennis through all these years and hearing that great album he did, he's one of those guys that's consistent performer, knows what he's singing about. Puts the right. When you sing the song, you got to be in the song. You just can't be.
We talked a little bit.
Yeah.
about
Yeah, you got to be in.
Well, that's what you do.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the way we learned back in
Yeah,
those
that's
days.
right. That's right.
Watching all the greats, Tony Bennett, Sammy, Frank, all of these guys. Nat King Cole. You watch all these guys in person. Johnny Mathis, who I escaped from one night, but
We're not
All right.
going there.
Yeah.
No.
no. But I mean,
We might have to.
but to hear and see the way that his breathing and the techniques he's using. I mean, that's why these guys are.
I learned, remember I told you, I learned, You learn by watching.
Mhm.
You learn by listening.
Yeah.
And you learn about technique. And you learn, as I said, Sinatra said, "Don't sing anything you don't believe in." Well,
Yeah.
he only said that as he got older,
Yeah,
because he sang some beauties in the beginning.
Oh,
You're
sure.
going like, "What are you doing singing that?" But in time, you gain wisdom.
Yes.
Wisdom
Yeah.
means, you gain wisdom through experience.
Yeah.
So when you sing about a lyric, and all of a sudden you say, well, wait a minute, I can, because I live that. I can relate to
Yes.
that. And
And,
those
and then be relaxed enough within yourself that you can take that emotion and share that emotion with the audience.
yeah, and if they get it,
Yeah.
then it's really
Let me ask
special.
you,
Yeah.
both of you, two crooners here. Have you ever cried on stage because you got so into the song and it meant so much you found yourself emotional and crying?
Oh yeah, many times.
Yeah.
There are certain songs
Yeah.
that,
What can you name one?
what are you doing the rest of your life? Michelle Legrand and Marilyn and Alan Bergman. I get choked up saying it.
Yeah.
Because when my daughter was born, and I was performing, and the lyric of the song is, "What are you doing the rest of your life, north and south and
Yeah.
east and west of your life?" And I identified with this new baby, and so and I only sing it when she comes to Vegas to visit me, and I can barely get through it. So there are certain songs
That song that I like that you, here's to your life.
Yeah, here's the
There's
life.
one line that says, "May all your storms be weathered."
Yeah. It's good.
May
Right.
all your storms be
and
weathered.
all
But
get-
it,
and all that's good get better.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, those are the type of songs that get you.
Yeah, I
emotional.
get choked up. There are certain songs, and those when he sings, "A House Is Not a Home." My wife and I just sit there and go, "That's it. We're done."
But you know what? It's something I don't know. Hanging out with Earl Grant, what a singer he was. What a all around consummate performer he was. But those guys back in those days would go, you know what? You're rushing these lyrics too much. What's the hurry?
Yeah,
Slow
feel
down.
it. Make them
Slow
feel
down
it.
and
Make 'em
sing the
feel
song.
it. Yeah.
Joe Williams, the same thing.
Yep.
Slow down and sing the song. And I'm saying, man, but I'm out there jumping, man. Now I got the girl.
Well,
out there
because you
jumping.
have that gift. You have that versatility on stage. Very much like Sammy. This guy moves on stage like you just sit there and go, how can you do this at this stage?
Yeah.
I get up to go to the bathroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I think about how times have changed. And this guy's got the energy on stage. He's electric.
Do you see any entertainers that in this new generation that kind of remind you of a Sammy or
I can't say I do, and mainly because I just don't follow it.
Yeah, I guess I'm probably the same way.
Yeah, I just don't-
My granddaughter could probably tell me.
Uh-huh.
Everybody talks about Bruno Mars, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of performers out there that are just electrifying on stage, and there's a lot of the other thing is productions are like there's a lot of gimmickry on stage, from
Sure.
explosions to lighting.
mentioned-
You used to go on with a spotlight.
Yeah.
You're lucky you had a monitor.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bruno Mars, but a lot of his last releases were old school releases.
Yeah,
Of course.
Yeah.
So they're going.
There's
back.
another one who's learned from the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I tried to do some of the, I'll say the new songs, and the thing about it is, the production is so choppy. It's not, when you used to sing a song, like you sing a ballad, and then this leads into the bridge, and this leads out of the bridge back into that, and you just follow but this stuff is
Kind of
is
jumps.
chopped because
Yeah,
they
jumps
recorded
over.
one bit at a time.
Yeah.
So, and then they glue it together. It's a hit record.
Well,
but-
they used to get it. That you've been in the studio. I mean, the first time I sang at Capitol Records, I walked down the hallway and I felt like I was at the Smithsonian. And here I am in this, this building that had all the great singers, and you look at the pictures, and I think about when Sinatra would perform live in the studio in front of a full orchestra and go through the entire tune. He wouldn't say, if he wanted, let's do another take. And they did another take. They didn't stop and say, okay, stop here. We're going to punch this line in from the last cut. There was no such thing in those days.
No, you just did it till you got it right.
Yeah. That's
Speaking
right.
of evolution, when they went to canned music, how did you personally feel about when we lost the art, orchestra, the live music, and the musicians union just went downhill.
Well,
what did you think about that?
That was pretty much, to me, the disco era is when it really hit home with me. It's when I found out that everything was gimmicked up. All the recordings were gimmicked up, and they used auto tune for people who couldn't sing, and they put the auto tune and they sound wonderful.
Sound and pitch.
But but when you see them in live, they got the thing in front of their mouth and they're mouthing the words, but it's already recorded. They're not.
It's a different.
We used to walk out on stage, and man, if you didn't have it, you didn't have it.
You didn't have, we sit there and we listen to a singer that might be singing a little flat, and you'd be sitting there and you're going.
Trying to bring him up.
Sit up a little straighter to help him get there. We come from that, so.
Yeah. I remember seeing a guy was in the audience and some guy was singing and the guy in the back goes, "Breathe."
Well, this guy's old school. He's got more stories than I could ever have. But we talked about being influenced. The performers that had a great influence on myself, and I really, when I look at him and I see all the energy at his age, and I'm not going to say how old you are, but at his age, the energy is still there, and it's because he's so passionate about what he does. It's instinct. It's in his heart.
You really do love it, or you don't. Mm-hmm. If you're just out there trying to make a few bucks, it's a whole different thing.
The audience is going to pick up on that.
Yeah, then when you're doing.
Well, you can't fake sincerity.
Yeah. And just like you said, Sinatra said, if you don't believe in the song, don't do it.
Yeah.
You start doing the songs you want to do, as opposed to songs that you think, oh yeah, this is number 40 on the hit parade.
Well, when we went on the road in the beginning, you did that because you needed to make sure you got they wanted you back.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
But as you got more well established as a performer, you started to have a little more discretion as to what you chose to sing and how you chose to interpret.
Once you realize that they're never going to have you back.
I had a lot of those places. Yeah.
What did you think about in this evolution that we're talking about? When out with the old, in with the new, when the dunes went down, then you had the Bellagio, right?
Yeah.
We've had a lot of implosions of great hotels where a lot of great things happened, but what came in their place, what did you think about that? The hotels that sprung up after that. The Sands, the great Sands with the Copper Lounge gave way to the Venetian.
Mm-hmm. I opened the Venetian. I was the first act in the Venetian.
Wow.
And I had just come back from Japan, and I had to go and rehearse at 5 a.m. with a hard hat on. Because
they were still building it.
Because I said, they're never going to open today. Yeah. And sure enough, that night they opened.
Wow.
But so there's, the history, and, embrace the history, but we still have to keep looking towards the future. I mean, it's you said, you used the word evolution. And it's going to continue to be that way.
Sure.
I miss a lot of the old hotels and the elegance. And when I went into the Desert Inn, I was there for 2 years, and I thought this was the best gig in the world. And the elegance and it's just. But everything's changed. But
did you know Johnny Lopez?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he was the maitre d'.
He was in the showroom.
I mentioned that. I mentioned that to your wife.
Yeah, I love John Lopez.
I talked to Johnny when your wife was on set,
and there was Johnny Lopez with Frank Shane. They ran the elegance, tuxedos, and there was no Ticketron. You go in and they say you'd stand in line to go see the show, and you paid it when you got your check at the end of whether it's a dinner show or a cocktail.
You didn't have to buy a ticket.
No, you didn't have to buy a ticket. And they go, let's see what I have available. And the guy would reach in his pocket and he'd see, is that a 20? Okay, well, they're slowly moving on up to the front.
Yeah.
I kind of appreciate that. I just,
Well, you got really great customer service.
Yeah.
You got great customer service, and one thing about the maitre d's, they were a powerful group for one thing.
Oh my!
Very powerful.
And they
group.
retired with a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Things have changed so much now. I not to deviate, but I went to dinner. I won't say where, but I was invited to dinner by a friend of mine. So I went and my wife and I were valet parked, And I gave the guy 20. I said, keep it close.
Yeah.
He says, it's $50. I thought I was giving the guy 20.
Yeah.
He's going to keep it close. I'll duke him again when I come out. I'm going $50.
So, yeah, you got to keep it close.
Yeah, keep it close. Yeah, it's $20. I'll put it in the garage.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Minimum of $50. So I said, okay, so that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So now we go into the dining room, this elegant restaurant, and we go to sit down with the gentleman that invited us, my producer, and we go to sit down, and we had reserved window seat, and they said it's $75 extra for the window seat, and I'm going, what? He said, well, you're paying for the view, and I'm going, well, I don't know about you two, but I see the CVS. It cost me $75 to look at the CVS.
Switch chairs.
Yeah. And then somebody was at like 2 tables over. I saw them. They were looking out our window. I said, "Don't look out our window." We paid big bucks for this view.
That's funny.
But that's the evolution. That's just the way things are now.
Yeah.
And what happens is every generation it changes, and so part of the thing is that you learn from the past, and they build towards the future, whether it be music, food, entertainment. We were just talking. Now we're a major league sports town. Yeah,
but I remember when we first came to town, and we first when Sinatra and those guys got us into the Sands, we got on the Strip and stopped doing dance clubs. A lot of the people turned on us because we were threatening. We were coming in doing top 10 songs and doing a whole bunch of R&B, rhythm and blues. Everything was show tunes and standards and stuff in town. So we were a threat because we were doing something different that really the other guys couldn't do because they weren't raised that way. They weren't taught that way. So,
but they embraced you. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah,
that was a part of the evolution too, the variety.
That's exactly
when
what
they see it works.
Yeah.
When they see it works, but at first, it's time when they just thought we were just some impetuous guys coming in there doing some crazy garage band stuff, and 3-chord changes all the time.
But when I think back about the way people dressed on stage as a performer, these guys would come out, they look so. Now sometimes I look at some of the rock acts and I go, they must be dressing down to go on stage.
Yeah,
they can't be wearing this during the day.
It's
just a different.
That's
It's a
part
different
of the
perspective.
But
entertainment.
listen, I went to Steve Miller Band, so the first, I'm just getting to know the guy. So I come to the sound check in the afternoon. I got on a little 2-piece outfit on, just afternoon stuff that I would wear normally. He goes, $10 for dressing better than me. I said, here's $100 because I probably always dress better than you.
Well, I used to go on stage every night with a tux. Now, not so much anymore. I wore a suit, a tie, or maybe an open shirt. But I never went on stage when I first got out here without wearing a tux.
Because once you gain a certain popularity, people know you and the people see you, and if you don't think enough about yourself to at least say, okay, people are going to be looking.
Well, I think
I got to at least put on a clean shirt.
Yeah, we talked about the elegance of the glory days where after 6 o'clock at night, people in a casino in a showroom, they dressed.
Yeah, you can have flip flops and a t-shirt and a tank top on.
You just didn't do that.
Yeah.
But like I said, everything has changed. Not just here; it's changed everywhere.
Everywhere.
So when I was a kid in school, I wasn't allowed to wear jeans to school. So. And today the teachers wear jeans. So everything changes. Yeah. But it's like we go back to that word you've used. And I'm not critiquing it. It's evolution. It's just changed. Sure. That's all.
And you see that now we're catering to not the baby boomers any longer, not the great generation, but now we're catering to the millennials.
Sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, how do you change? Because when I was at your show, I saw older and younger. The ethnicity was very diverse. But how do you change your music or?
Well, what I do is I try, as far as the variety show is concerned, I try to bring people on that are good at what they do.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, as long as they're good at what they do. If it's whatever the genre. I've had country artists on. I've had pop artists.
You had a country artist on the day that I was there. The ladies sound like Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Kind of look like her.
Yep. Yep. So we try to encompass and embrace different genres, different styles of music. As long as you're good at what you do. I'm not there to. I see somebody do. So I can't do what he does. I can't do what most of these people. I can only do what I can do.
And that's all you're supposed to do.
That's right. You can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
I want to share with our audience, if you like what you saw here today with the Mr. Dennis Bono, and if you like what you saw today here with Mr. Dennis Bono and also Sonny Charles, please hit like or subscribe. And thank you so much for joining Las Vegas Hospitality Evolution. We have the best.
Well, I'll tell you, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to really sit and visit with you and talk about the things that I'm passionate about, how I got to where I am, and to really embrace this community, because it's a most remarkable community. And then to surprise me by bringing this guy on is just the icing on the cake.
Well, can I say
Thank
this?
you, Lonnie. Yeah.
The sesquicentennial, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, the 150th birthday of Nevada.
Yeah.
Dennis and Lorraine called me, and I went on the show at the Smith Center with them.
Yeah, on the big stage.
And I realized in the dressing room, I said, I'm 75. I'm half as old as the state.